Most people are looking for how do I keep myself safe in a world where there are players. Earlier this afternoon, when I was in a different part of Noblesville, I had a young, skinny girl who looked like she was anorexic or very ill come up and stand next to me and ask me whether or not it'd be okay if she smoked. I simply said, please blow your smoke in another direction because I don't particularly like smoking and I don't particularly want to smell like someone's cigarette. I don't really care what she was smoking is not true, but I don't trust the young people today who don't do lawful things. She tried to put herself in a position of being okay and being fine with me and just being too cozy, but she was too interested in what was in my bag. I could see her sizing up my bags, looking things over, and acting as though she was going to do something. Later in the evening, I went to get some additional food at a place that I like to go because, for the most part, the employees are regardful, they protect people's privacy, and they don't interfere in another human being's life. They seem to be a live and let live group so far. That doesn't mean that someone can't perpetrate a crime there, and it doesn't mean that someone can't lie to them and get them to do things unlawfully or illegally. But what it does mean is that people have the right to gain presence and gain food without being tampered with. And most places don't always allow that. There are some opportunities for people to do that and other opportunities for people not to do that. But in life, the woman did a very fine job talking to me, encouraging me in my spirituality. The problem is she dropped a hint later in the evening that made it appear as though she had been gathering information from someone and purposely trying to utilize information to see how I reacted. I openly turned it into a joke and tried to figure out how she would respond to those things. In truth, she responded somewhat deadpan, which was unusual because most of the time cordial people will play along with whatever you say. They will purposely agree or disagree with whatever it is that you're putting out there in positive or negative space. The reality is there's always a player thinking they have the right to play a game on someone's life. There's always a person who thinks they have the right to interfere with a person's thought process, or monkey with their opportunities for food, or do things like this that is absolutely monstrous in front of the Lord. What is utterly amazing is how many times the Lord will allow them to think they're doing well. But what the Lord is preparing for them is their own demise. When I talk about God, people are sort of surprised that I openly think about God. I often think about God these days because of how many people have utterly lied on my name. I went to a Catholic ministry to gain food, and a woman there whose name is probably not what she was calling herself just based on the generation of which she came. What I know about naming conventions is that there's certain names that are prevalent during that time period. My guess is that woman didn't really like her name and she decided to change her name, and that was perfectly fine with most people. The problem with the experience there was that she illegally took my confidential information without any permission or consent, without talking to her executive director, and as a volunteer, she illegally took my information to a police officer. Lo and behold, I asked the woman who was serving me in that confidential space to stop that situation, but the woman was too old, honestly, in chronological years, to actually believe that someone amongst their staff would actually do something like that. The other problem that I had while I was there was that there was a man who was representing them in volunteer type, allegedly. When we go through a food line at these places, they have someone who's a shopper for us, who walks us through the food items. He was rather impatient with me, and I think the Lord was trying to teach him something, because normally God allows me to pick stuff really quick. It's not that hard for God to direct a man to what is appropriate to their individual food needs, but that man was incredibly impatient. He started pulling things off the shelf, trying to show me stuff, and that's been my experience with men who are impatient. They try to help with the shopping. Now, I probably have been a man like that with other people when they've included me in the shopping. But the truth is, his job was simply to count my points, put them in a basket, and ensure I left with all the product that they were allegedly being gifted to me for my own nourishment. You see, when I go out to that Catholic Charities website, I see the principles that they have. I tried to talk to the woman, Joan, who was the person, liaison, who held a piece of equipment from me. Literally, apparently, allegedly, for several weeks, I would gather right there in public with my full name printed across the handle of the item. I sort of had to wonder what confidentiality she was protecting when she put that item in an office where a lot of people pass by on both sides of the glass pane, where a lot of people would see my name pretty much on that piece of equipment. Now, if you say that to someone in their leadership, they will presume that people don't look at those things, etc. I don't believe that. What I believe is that they're lazy in how they put down their confidentiality principles and privacy issues, and openly they don't have one bit of clue about what it means to be homeless, nor do they have one bit of understanding for how people protect their lives after identity theft. When I tried to talk to the woman who was left in charge because it was forced upon me by this impatient Steve, he kept telling me that he would bring about this conversation, and I said, no, I'm not interested in talking to that woman. He did it anyway. This is where my rights were invaded. I already had enough experiences with that woman to know that I didn't like her, that she was not in my soul code group, that she would not allow me any dignities that I would have tried to muster in my intelligence of conversation, and that openly it would be a waste of time. I pretty much knew she would say no to my request of how do I make my 5 points that I hadn't utilized yet roll over, and openly she brought it back to the woman Joan, who was much older than her, to make the decision on. And I thought, okay, you don't really want to make the decision. You don't want to really be responsible for what you've said, so you bring it back to someone who's just going to and agree with you. The man Steve was no longer need to be present, and yet he stayed and remained. When I tried to talk to the woman in charge about different types of rights and different types of human rights concerns, she totally shut me down. She kept talking over me. She kept telling me she wasn't interested in listening to me, and I openly thought, okay, this is an organization that touts the willingness to listen. This is an organization that promotes how they help people. This is an organization that presumes they have the freedom and the financial wherewithal to help people to find shelter. Other things I asked about most was shelter. Was anyone there to help me to find some shelter? Could they reach out to their Catholic ministry group, their volunteers, whoever, to see if they'd be willing to accept my work in terms of my hands, in terms of my ability to help someone who's elderly, for a place to stay? I was told no, because I didn't do things like that. The problem with people who talk like that is that they're not moving forward in their life. They're lying about their rights in people's lives. They are interfering with a person's conversations. They are trying to control what is going on. And even the man Steve kept talking over me. And I really was getting tired because, in truth, I am the patron of that service. It is a non-for-profit, and with non-for-profit laws, where there are bylaws and there are programs and principles about what a company, what an organization should be doing for a person like me, and vice versa, what a person like me can be doing. I was in the process of collecting my gear when several of these officers who were there kept trying to rush me, kept trying to force upon me that they could help me, they could do something, they could do this. And the reality is, I didn't ask for any of their help. But someone in that house thought they had the volunteer responsibility to act on behalf of the entire president of that organization, the entire principled people of that organization, and basically send me off the property. I would have been able to get off the property sooner, except they gave me a mechanical contraption that I hadn't figured out at all how it worked yet. There was no instructions on it, and I had to figure out how to make it work because I had other things that I was carrying, including the food I just picked up. Now, in life, we have a moment in time to help someone. That moment for that woman, Clarissa, may be gone because we don't need to have impoverished people being accosted and assaulted by Catholics who really think they've got somebody's number. The reality is, when I questioned her about her interactions with police, she pretty much grinned from ear to ear and lied through her teeth. Most people can spot a lie without too much difficulty. The reality is that I have been cyberhacked. I just recently produced a new phone, and yet someone seems to know when I'm on the line. That is immoral. Those Kroger employees should be held accountable for that, and openly, I'm tired of their crap. I have a right to my life, I have a right to my feelings, I have a right to sit down when I'm tired, I have the right to fall asleep when I'm tired, especially if I have an illness, and I may have one now because someone thought they had the lawful right to monkey around with my hormones. I am now feeling that excruciating pain that I once did long ago when my hormones were not in check. Men do have hormonal indifferences. We do have problems with them. We don't talk enough about them out loud because we feel that that issue is a private one. It's to be dealt with only our physician and only with whoever we choose to be present. Some audiophiles, and some videos are completely within my right to make. If there's an ordinance in a community that says you may not bring in your equipment, you cannot utilize our server to do these things, then they should automatically say so when the servers come up and when we're asked to question or check whether or not it's right for us. In time, we have moments to make life matter. I'm asking each and every employee to consider whether or not they know who they're working for. These organizations, as I said, let's go back to them, are proponents of impoverished people. They have taglines that say how they're going to love on people. And while they might be good people and while they might have cars to all these cars in the land, the bottom line is that there's a legal issue. The legal issue is that now a place that was providing me food is no longer doing so and has thrown me off the property and trespassed me with the help of Noblesville Police. I get a little tired of this stuff, and I'm pretty sure the Lord does too. I had to ask him this morning in my own prayerful way, my own meditation way, like I've suggested to students many times over, that when I was there, what was their thought in their rights? And when I left there, what gave them the right to continue to call? In life, we have moments in time to make all the difference in the world for people, and I openly get absolutely exhausted with the liars of the land who think that one piece of information makes them an expert in a situation of someone else's life. It's a lie they tell themselves. They act as though they are God above all, and the Lord is not pleased. As a lay pastor, I have the right to talk about God, I have the right to produce myself shelter, and I have the right to put garbage bags over my belongings that were gifted me by a lovely Wendy's employee so that my things do not get wet. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign saying, I am going to work in the house of the Lord, and if you don't like it, tough shit. I don't want to swear that much, so I'm really working on curbing that, but openly, I don't always talk about things, is what some people feel. The reason is because I'm being harmed. And when a person is being harmed, they have the right to change their name, they have the right to self-protection, and they have the right to carry whatever weapon they feel comfortable to make sure that they don't get a beat down, but anyone who's trying to harm them will. No one asked a cellist or a bassist from the orchestra to come by my place where I'm residing. No one asked two pens to literally fall apart with the pens intact, provide themselves a writing space, and openly open their hearts, mind, or soul to a man who's literally needing help. Now, when I close this broadcast, we'll have to see whether it's really there or whether or not they've infiltrated my right to make another commission now. In life, you have one moment in time to make a difference for someone, and you might have missed your moment because of your own selfishness, sort of. But let's face it, some of these parking lots actually interconnect, and they know that they need to have more fresh meat in their banking, and they openly know who they are. The Mets Bank of the national cities of late don't understand customer service. They are not being manned by 30-something people, they're being manned by 20-somethings, which allow a bank or store manager to get up, to decide what the heck someone was doing in their shop literally, and then to decide whether or not they have the lawful rights underneath the house of God to interfere. When a man is talking about real life, he has the right to talk about real life. He has the right to walk to a park, he has the right to sit down on a curb, he has the right to do a lot of things. We have police officers that do not recognize federal law, and that is a real problem. Now, in life, we have moments of time to make all the difference for someone else. Are you willing to take that away from yourself? Are you willing to submit that to the Lord? Are you willing to understand that you have failed your life if you participated in stalking? And openly, some women just don't get it until it's too late. Thanks for listening.